Hey, I'm the resident director. It's my job to be in everybody's business. And like I said before, hurry up.
Okay,
Because we're both so damaged, we can't be with nobody else. We had to come back home.
Thank you to everybody who's been praying for me and saying good things and supporting me during this time in my life. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Back in the 90s, if you needed a laugh that didn't leave a scar, you called Sinbad. The man had 30 million people watching him every week on a different world, sold out 2,000-seat venues without breaking a sweat, and went toe-to-toe with Arnold Schwarzenegger in Jingle All the Way, a film that pulled in $129 million worldwide. He was the clean comic who proved you didn't have to cuss to kill. He had the smile, the timing, the whole package. But here's the thing about Hollywood. It don't owe you tomorrow just because you owned yesterday.
My beautiful brother right here, Sinbad, the one, the only, the best, most incredible spirit, such a blessing.
By 2013, Sinbad was staring down $11 million in debt. Most of it taxes the IRS had been chasing since his peak years. Then, in October 2020, a blood clot traveled from his heart to his brain. The stroke hit hard. Doctors gave him a 30% chance of survival. For months, the man who made millions laugh couldn't speak, couldn't walk, couldn't stand. But in 2024, Sinbad rolled onto a Zoom call at an HBCU tour, looked into that camera, and said two words that shook the whole room. Miracles happen. This is the story of Sinbad, the king of clean comedy who lost everything and still ain't done fighting.
I was born and raised in a place called Benton Harbor, Michigan. It's on the on the far west side. It's over going toward Chicago, man.
Every legend starts somewhere quiet, before the cameras and the crowds. For Sinbad, that somewhere was Benton Harbor, Michigan, a small lakeside town where dreams had to fight the cold just to survive. David Adkins was born November 10th, 1956, into a world that didn't promise him much except the chance to work hard and hope harder. Benton Harbor wasn't the kind of place you heard about on the news unless something went wrong, but it had soul, grit, and a black community that knew how to laugh through the struggle. Young David learned early that humor could be armor, that a quick joke could diffuse tension faster than a fist ever could. He watched his people carry themselves with dignity, even when the world tried to strip it away. And somewhere in those streets, between the porch steps and the corner stores, he started building a voice. Comedy wasn't the plan at first. Like a lot of young black men in the 70s trying to find a path that didn't dead end, David enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. The military gave him structure, discipline, a paycheck, and a front row seat to how ridiculous authority could be when it took itself too seriously. He spent his service cracking jokes in barracks, turning inspections into improv, making soldiers laugh when the weight of duty got too heavy. But the Air Force and David Adkins, they weren't built for each other. In 1981, he was discharged, and instead of seeing it as failure, he saw it as freedom. That's when David became Sinbad. The name came from the old sailor, the adventurer who refused to stay put, and it fit. He hit the stand-up circuit hard, working late-night slots in clubs that smelled like smoke and spilled liquor. Stages so small you could hear every joke land or crash. The comedy game was raw, brutal. You either made folks laugh or you got booed off before the punchline. Sinbad didn't cuss, didn't shock, didn't lean on dirty material the way a lot of comics did. He built his act on energy, physicality, observations about family and relationships, and everyday absurdity. Clean didn't mean soft. It meant universal. For 5 years, Sinbad grinded. Small clubs turned into bigger rooms turned into word-of-mouth buzz. The discipline he learned in the Air Force showed up in his work ethic. He treated every stage like a mission, every set like a chance to prove he belonged. And in 1986, a TV spotlight finally found him. Star Search was the kind of show that could make you or break you in front of millions, a televised audition where America voted with their applause. Sinbad stepped onto that stage in 1986 with nothing but his wit, his energy, and that clean but electric style he'd been perfecting in basement comedy clubs for half a decade. The audience roared. The judges noticed. Just like that, the door cracked open. What happened next changed everything. In 1987, Sinbad landed a recurring role on A Different World, the NBC sitcom spin-off of The Cosby Show that followed students at the fictional Hillman College. He played Coach Walter Oakes, the tough but lovable gym teacher who could crack a joke as fast as he could blow a whistle. The role wasn't supposed to be the spotlight, but Sinbad had a way of stealing scenes without even trying. His improvisation, his timing, the way he could turn a throwaway line into the funniest moment of the episode, it all clicked. By the show's peak, A Different World was pulling in over 16 million viewers every single week, making it one of the top-rated sitcoms on television. Black families tuned in religiously. White families did too. College students, grandparents, kids. Sinbad's humor didn't need a demographic. It just needed people willing to laugh. He represented something rare in that era, a black comedian who could headline a network show without compromising, without code switching, without playing into stereotypes. He was unapologetically himself, and America loved him for it. In 1993, Sinbad got his own show. The Sinbad Show put him front and center as David Bryan, a bachelor raising 2 foster kids while running a computer business. Fox gave him primetime real estate, a talented cast, and the kind of budget that said they believed in him. For a minute, it felt like Sinbad had reached the mountaintop. His face on billboards, his name in TV Guide, his comedy defining Thursday nights. But network television is a ruthless game, and even the brightest stars can flicker out fast. Could he keep the ratings up? Could he stay clean and still compete with edgier shows creeping into the lineup? The answer, for a moment, was yes. But TV was just the warm-up. Hollywood was calling. Hollywood doesn't just open doors for comedians. It kicks them wide open if you've got the heat. And in the mid-90s, Sinbad was on fire. The transition from TV star to movie star isn't easy, especially for a black comedian trying to break into family films without selling out or dumbing down. But Sinbad had something Hollywood couldn't manufacture: likability that crossed every line, race, class, age. He was the guy you wanted at your barbecue, the uncle who made Thanksgiving dinner bearable. In 1995, Houseguest hit theaters with Sinbad as the lead. The film opened at #1 its first weekend, proving that a clean, black-led comedy could dominate the box office. Critics weren't kind, but audiences didn't care. They showed up, they laughed, they brought their kids. Then came 1996, and Sinbad went toe-to-toe with Arnold Schwarzenegger in Jingle All the Way. The film was chaotic, ridiculous, over the top, and it made $129 million worldwide. Sinbad held his own next to one of Hollywood's biggest action stars, stealing scenes with nothing but timing and energy. That same year, he headlined Disney's First Kid, 2 major studio films in 1 year. Sinbad wasn't just working, he was everywhere. The grind was relentless. Between film shoots, Sinbad was on the road, headlining sold-out comedy shows in 2,000-seat venues across the country. Green rooms, late-night flights, meet and greets with fans who'd grown up watching him, autographs, press junkets. In 1997, he showed up in Good Burger alongside Keenan and Kel. By 2003, DreamWorks Animation tapped him to voice the lead role in Sinbad, Legend of the Seven Seas. But here's the thing about being on top that nobody talks about. The higher you climb, the more people expect, the more money flows through your hands, and the more complicated everything gets. Contracts, managers, agents, taxes, back-end deals. Sinbad was making millions, but he wasn't seeing all of it. The IRS was watching. Accountants were handling things. And somewhere in the blur of success, between the laughter and the box office numbers, the cracks were starting to form. Sinbad would joke about it on stage sometimes, that edge underneath the punchlines. "You ever feel like life just hit you with a left?" he'd say, and the crowd would laugh, not knowing how close to the truth he was. Hollywood doesn't warn you when the tide turns. You just wake up one day and realize the phone ain't ringing like it used to. For Sinbad, the shift happened slowly at first, then all at once. Around the early 2000s, the industry started chasing a different kind of comedy. The clean, family-friendly lane that made Sinbad a star? It was suddenly old news. Chris Rock was dropping specials that had the culture in a chokehold. Dave Chappelle was rewriting the rules. Even the black sitcoms that had dominated the 90s were disappearing from prime time, replaced by reality TV and shows that didn't look like him, didn't sound like him, didn't need him. Sinbad kept working, but the offers got smaller. Fewer starring roles, more guest spots. The venues on the comedy tour circuit stayed loyal, but the big Hollywood machine? It had moved on to younger faces, different voices, comedians willing to go places Sinbad wouldn't. And then there were the numbers. In 2009, Sinbad filed for bankruptcy. Not because he was lazy, not because he stopped working, but because the money he'd made during his peak years in the late 90s had come with a bill he didn't see coming. $2.5 million in unpaid taxes. The IRS doesn't care how many people you made laugh or how many box office records you set. They want their money, with interest, and they don't negotiate in punchlines. Picture Sinbad sitting in some accountant's office, paperwork spread across a mahogany desk, each page a reminder of how complicated success had become. The income from Houseguest, from Jingle All the Way, from sold-out tours. It had all passed through his hands, but somewhere between managers and agents and bad advice, the taxes hadn't been paid. The case got dismissed eventually, but the weight didn't go anywhere. Sinbad kept his humor about it, the way he always did. "Broke but blessed," he'd say with that signature grin, turning pain into punchlines because that's what comedians do. But behind the jokes, the reality was setting in. Hollywood had shifted, the money was gone, and the IRS wasn't done with him yet. In 2013, the numbers stopped being numbers and started becoming a prison. Sinbad filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy in May, $11 million in debt. $8 million of that owed to the IRS, stretching all the way back to the late 90s and early 2000s. Another $2.3 million to the state of California. $374,000 on an American Express card. His monthly income at the time? $16,000. His assets? $131,000. "I spent money, and I kept thinking, I get one more movie and I'll wipe these bills out," he told a reporter, his voice steady but tired. But that movie never came. That's the trap so many entertainers fall into. Betting on a future project to save you from the past. Paying business expenses out of your own pocket because you believe the work will keep coming. Except the work didn't. The roles dried up. The studios moved on. Then came 2015, and his body started breaking down too. On his 59th birthday, Sinbad underwent double fusion spinal surgery for chronic pain that had been building for years. The kind of pain you carry from decades of physical comedy, from throwing your whole body into every joke. Recovery was brutal, but he pushed through it because that's what he'd always done. Turn pain into performance, keep moving forward, keep the smile up. But nothing could have prepared him for October 2020. A blood clot traveled from Sinbad's heart to his brain. An ischemic stroke that hit fast and hit hard. One minute he was a man who'd made millions laugh. The next, he was lying in a hospital bed. Family huddled around him whispering prayers. Doctors talking in low voices about surgery and survival rates. 30%. That's the chance they gave him. He made it. Barely. But the Sinbad who walked into that hospital wasn't the same one who came out months later. He couldn't walk without help, couldn't speak clearly, couldn't do the one thing that had defined his entire existence: make people laugh on command. The road to recovery, his family said publicly, was long and expensive. A GoFundMe went up to help cover therapy costs because even after all those years of box office wins and sold-out shows, the money was gone. Survival is just the beginning. The real fight starts when you wake up and realize everything you used to do without thinking now takes every ounce of strength you've got left. For the first several months after the stroke, Sinbad moved through a blur of acute care facilities. Machines breathing for him, doctors monitoring every vital sign. They put him in a medically induced coma. They hooked him to a ventilator. The man who'd spent decades making people laugh with his whole body was now relearning how to move a finger, how to blink on command, how to breathe without assistance. By May 2021, Sinbad was transferred to the California Rehabilitation Institute, where the slow, brutal work of rebuilding began. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy. Every day was a war against his own body, trying to coax muscles back to life, trying to make his mouth form words that used to come so easy. Picture him in those sterile therapy rooms, surrounded by equipment and therapists, guiding him through exercises that felt impossible. But somewhere in the middle of the pain, Sinbad's humor would crack through. He'd attempt a joke mid-session, garbled words turning into laughter from the therapist, because even when his body was failing, his spirit refused to quit. In July 2021, he finally came home. Not healed, not whole, but alive. His family became his round-the-clock caregivers, his cheerleaders, his reality check. In November 2022, they posted an update with a photo that shook the internet. Sinbad standing with a walker, his face showing both exhaustion and determination. The caption included his own words, "I am not done. I will not stop fighting until I can walk across the stage again." The comedy community rallied. Cedric the Entertainer posted tributes. Wanda Sykes flooded his comments with love. Lonnie Love and Holly Robinson Pete spread the word, asking fans to support the GoFundMe that helped cover therapy costs. Sinbad started showing up on Instagram in small doses, videos of him using a walker, messages thanking fans, moments of vulnerability mixed with defiance. "We getting there, y'all? Don't you quit on me," he'd say. And the comments would flood with hearts and prayers from people who'd grown up watching him, people who needed to see him win this fight. It was February 29th, 2024, a leap day that felt prophetic, when Sinbad appeared on a massive screen at the Atlanta University Center, connecting via Zoom to thousands of students for a Different Worlds HBCU reunion tour. The moment his face came into view, the auditorium erupted. Students who weren't even born when Walter Oakes first stepped onto Hillman's campus were on their feet, screaming, crying, losing their minds because the legend was back. Wheelchair-bound, voice slower than it used to be, but undeniably present and undeniably Sinbad. His former co-stars were right there with him on that call, and when Debbie Allen greeted him, her voice cracked with emotion. This wasn't just a reunion. This was a resurrection. Sinbad looked into that camera and told those students what he'd been telling himself for 3.5 years. Miracles happen. 4 days later, on March 4th, Sinbad posted his first Instagram video since 2022. It was raw, unpolished, real. Him sitting there, face showing the weight of the journey, but eyes still carrying that spark folks remembered. "Thank you for your prayers, support, and positive thoughts," he said, his speech deliberate but clear. "They've carried me this far and will see me through to the finish line. It truly is a different world out here." Then he addressed the people emailing him through his recovery website, folks fighting their own battles with strokes and health crises. "Some of you are going through what I'm going through, or even worse than me. I'm going to try to answer as many as I can. I pray for you and understand what it's like." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Wanda Sykes, Judd Apatow, Terry Crews, Robin Thede, Lil Rel Howery, all flooding the comments with love. The video went viral, not because it was polished, but because it was true. And Sinbad ended it the way only he could. You can't believe it? You better believe it. Miracles happen. 2 months later, in May 2024, Sinbad returned to stand-up for the first time since the stroke at Netflix's tribute show in his honor. With his family by his side, he delivered what attendees called a sharp routine. Not the full hour-long sets he used to command, but enough to remind everyone that the timing, the charisma, the essence of what made him great was still there, still fighting its way back. Then came the call that changed everything. Tyler Perry reached out to Sinbad's family with an offer, a role in his new Netflix thriller, Straw. Not a cameo, not charity, a real part as a character named Benny. It would be Sinbad's first acting gig in 5 years. It's incredibly significant for me, as a man, to see men wanting to support and care for their families, Perry told Entertainment Tonight at the film's June 2025 screening. I know it has been quite a challenge for him, so providing him this opportunity made me feel wonderful. I'm genuinely thrilled for him, and he performed excellently. Sinbad showed up, did the work, and proved that even after a stroke that should have killed him, even after years of therapy and financial ruin, he could still show up and deliver. In July 2025, just weeks after audiences celebrated Sinbad's triumphant return in Tyler Perry's Straw, the paperwork hit, another bankruptcy filing. After all the recovery, all the comebacks, all the standing ovations, Sinbad still owed the IRS $8 million from his peak years. The same era that made him a household name was the same era that buried him in debt he couldn't escape. That's the part they don't put in the Hollywood biopics. You can survive a stroke, relearn how to walk, come back to acting, and still be fighting the government for money you made when the world loved you most. But here's what the balance sheets and bankruptcy filings can't measure: Sinbad's cultural footprint, the way his work lives on in ways that don't show up in net worth estimates. Younger generations are discovering him through TikTok clips of a different world, through memes of Jingle All the Way, through parents showing their kids what comedy used to look like before shock value became the standard. He's being rediscovered not as a relic, but as a standard bearer. Proof that you could headline network TV, sell out arenas, and dominate box offices without compromise, without vulgarity, without playing into stereotypes Hollywood wanted to box black comedians into. Sinbad pioneered a lane that's almost extinct now. Clean, family-friendly, unapologetically black comedy that appealed to everyone. He proved mainstream success was possible without selling out, and he paid for that integrity with his livelihood when the industry decided his style was outdated. But the legacy stands. The work endures. And the man himself? Still here, still fighting, still promising his fans. Expect to see more of me soon. What Sinbad's story teaches us is this: the entertainment industry will profit off black talent, celebrate it, package it, and sell it to the world, but it rarely protects the people who create it. The same system that put Sinbad on magazine covers and billboards didn't warn him about tax strategies or financial planning. The same networks that made millions off A Different World weren't there when the medical bills piled up after the stroke. The same Hollywood that crowned him didn't catch him when he fell. But Sinbad's resilience isn't just about surviving a blood clot or learning to walk again. It's about surviving an industry designed to use you up and move on. And he's still standing, still showing up, still making people believe in miracles because he is one. Because Sinbad didn't just survive a stroke. He survived an industry that tried to erase him long before his body ever failed. And folks, that kind of miracle, that's the one Hollywood never wants to talk about.